When a powerful man arrives at the hospital to meet his newborn child, he expects joy. Instead, he finds an empty room, a bitter truth, and the first crack in the perfect life he thought he had under control. What begins as confusion unravels into betrayal, silence, and a fight not for power, but for love, redemption, and the family he may have already lost. Hello family, welcome to Storytime with Imzi. Please subscribe and like, it means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. The black Bentley tore through the city streets like a shadow chasing dawn. Jared Montgomery barely registered the blur of neon signs and traffic lights as he gripped the steering wheel with one hand and checked his phone with the other. Missed calls. One from the hospital, one from his assistant, and two from a number he didn't recognize. His heart pounded with a cocktail of fear and anticipation. The words echoed in his head. Your wife has given birth. Both mother and child are stable. He hadn't even made it to the delivery room. The hospital came into view, its sterile white glow under the city night like a lighthouse for the broken and hopeful. He screeched to a stop in front of the entrance, threw the keys to the valet without a word, and rushed through the sliding glass doors. The scent of antiseptic and stale coffee hit him instantly. Labor and delivery, he barked at the front desk, barely slowing down. Room 614, the clerk replied. But he was already halfway down the corridor, his designer shoes pounding against the linoleum. His tailored coat flared behind him like the train of a man who hadn't slept in 2 days. He pushed through the double doors to the maternity wing and stopped, breathless, scanning the room numbers until he found it. Room 614. Empty. The bed was stripped. The machines unplugged. The only trace of life was a faint indentation in the pillows and the scent of lavender lotion. What the hell? You're late, a voice said behind him. He turned to find a nurse standing in the doorway, arms crossed. Her face was lined with exhaustion and judgment in equal measure. Where is my wife? Jared asked, stepping forward. Gone. She checked out this afternoon with her bodyguards. Took the baby, too. Didn't leave a forwarding address. His blood ran cold. That's impossible. She was supposed to be here. She was just. The nurse shook her head. She waited for you. Days. Cried through the night. You never came. Jared opened his mouth, then closed it again. I told my mother, he started, the words falling flat. Your mother? The nurse snorted. You think love can be outsourced? The silence that followed was suffocating. Jared stood still, the weight of her words wrapping around his chest like a vice. All the meetings, the deals, the late-night strategy sessions. It all crumbled under the unbearable truth. He hadn't been there. Not when it mattered. And now they were gone. Jared leaned against the cold wall outside room 614, his thoughts crashing over him like thunder. He felt disoriented, like someone had yanked the floor out from under him. His hands, used to commanding boardrooms and signing billion-dollar contracts, now trembled uselessly at his sides. The nurse hadn't moved. She stood at the door, watching him with tired, unblinking eyes. You have no idea what she went through, do you? She said, her voice softer now but no less piercing. Jared turned to her slowly, his face pale. She was supposed to be taken care of. I told my mother. I made sure. You told your mother, the nurse repeated, her tone flat. Sir, we don't get many women in here with their own security detail. But that doesn't protect them from silence. That doesn't comfort them at 3 a.m. when they're sobbing because the one person they needed to see never showed up. He blinked, absorbing the words, each one driving deeper. She didn't even scream during labor, the nurse continued. She was silent. I've seen women grip the rails and howl through the pain, but her? Nothing. Just tears. I thought at first she was brave. Then I realized she was heartbroken. Jared looked down, throat tight. I didn't abandon her, he said, almost to himself. I was busy. Meetings. Clients. Expansion plans. I told my mother every day, every single day, to bring her meals, check on her, keep her company. The nurse gave a humorless laugh. Well, then either your mother has a great poker face, or she never walked through those doors once. That hit him harder than he expected. I thought I was doing right by her, he whispered, more to the hallway than to the woman beside him. I thought if I just kept things stable, if I just handled everything else, she'd be okay. She didn't need you to handle everything, the nurse said. She needed you to show up. Jared pushed off the wall, ran a hand through his hair, and exhaled a shaky breath. Where did she go? The nurse shrugged. Didn't say. Just signed the discharge, took the baby, and left like a ghost. But if I were her, I wouldn't come back either. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The hallway buzzed faintly with intercom static and distant cries of newborns. But around Jared, it felt like the whole world had gone silent. He turned and walked away, his footsteps hollow. Outside, the sky had darkened into a heavy indigo. He pulled out his phone and dialed. "Mom," he said when she picked up. "Jared, is everything all right? Did you visit Amelia at the hospital?" There was a pause. "Of course, sweetheart," she replied smoothly. "Every day. Just like you asked." She looked radiant. Glowing. "That baby." "Don't lie to me," he said quietly. Silence. Then, cold and unapologetic, she replied. "I didn't go. And no, I'm not sorry." The line went dead, but her words echoed in his ears. "I didn't go. And no, I'm not sorry." Jared stood frozen outside the hospital, the night wind cutting through his coat like ice. The city hummed in the distance, horns blaring, tires screeching, but he heard none of it. All he could hear was his mother's voice, calm, cold, smug. He stared at his phone like it might explain something. He had called her every day, repeatedly reminded her. Make sure Amelia's eating. Sit with her, even if she doesn't talk. Just be there. He hadn't thought to double-check. Because Catherine Montgomery had always been impeccable. Elegant. Imposing. Calculated. She didn't forget things. She didn't disobey. She certainly didn't lie, not to him. Or so he thought. He drove home in silence. No music. No calls. Just the low rumble of the engine and his pulse pounding in his ears. When he pulled up to the estate, the house loomed like a monument to his blindness, stone and glass, spotless and hollow. He found her in the sunroom, sipping tea by candlelight like the perfect society matriarch. Everything about her was pristine. The pearl earrings, the pressed silk blouse, the smug little smile when she looked up. "You spoke to the nurse, I assume," she said. "I did. And I imagine she gave you quite the lecture." Jared dropped his coat on the chair. His voice was cold steel. "Why?" Catherine raised an eyebrow. "Why what? You lied to me. Every single day. You said you were there. You said she was fine." "She was fine," Catherine said lightly, placing her teacup down. "Physically. You abandoned her." "She's a grown woman," Catherine snapped. "Not some fragile little bird. Honestly, Jared, you're acting like she was stranded in the wilderness. She had private security, a private suite, private nurses. What more could she possibly need?" "Me," Jared said, his voice low. She hesitated for a fraction of a second. Just enough for him to see the truth. She didn't forget. She chose not to go. "I told you before," she said coolly. "I don't trust her. I never have. That girl is cunning. Beautiful, yes, but manipulative. She turned you into a puppet the moment she slipped that ring on." "Don't," he warned. "She took advantage of your guilt after that accident. She knew exactly when to get pregnant. She always had a plan, Jared. I was never part of it. You were supposed to care for her. You were supposed to care for me. I was protecting you." His laugh was sharp and bitter. "No, you were protecting your control. And you've cost me everything." He turned to leave, but her voice followed him like a hook. "She blocked your number, didn't she?" He stopped. "You're not going to find her," Catherine said, standing now, her face hardening into something cruel. "She's gone. And frankly, good riddance. Better now than 10 years into a miserable marriage." Jared looked back at her, disgust twisting his face. "You're not my family anymore." And then he left her there, alone with her tea and her silence, unaware that for the first time in her life, Catherine Montgomery had miscalculated, and it would cost her far more than she realized. Jared barely remembered the drive. His hands were on the wheel, his eyes on the road, but his mind was somewhere else, churning with the slow, suffocating realization that his wife had slipped completely beyond his reach. As soon as he hit the penthouse elevator, he pulled out his phone and dialed Amelia's number again. 1 ring. 2. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. He froze. He redialed. Same message. He tried her alternate line. Then her work number. Her publicist's office. The security team's emergency line. Blocked. Disconnected. Rerouted to nothing. He unlocked his phone and opened their text thread, the one once filled with late-night, I love yous and ultrasound photos. Gone. No messages. He opened her Instagram, account not found. Her email? Bound back. Like she'd evaporated. He staggered into the living room, the city skyline blurring outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. Everything around him was exactly how it had always been, minimalist, curated, controlled. But now it all felt irrelevant. Cold. He made his way to the nursery, the room he'd insisted on designing himself. Pale blues and soft grays, a custom crib made of reclaimed maple wood, a nightlight that projected stars onto the ceiling. A tiny onesie with the words, Daddy's Little Legend, still hung from the changing table. He stared at it for a long time, then sat down hard on the floor. This wasn't just a marital rift. This was exile. He opened his laptop, scanning the security logs. Nothing. Her movements had been swept clean. His assistant, Sam, picked up after 2 rings. Sir, I need everything you've got on Amelia, Jared said. Where she went. Who helped her? Which of my men she took? Sam hesitated. She didn't take your men, sir. She used her own team. Transferred all contracts to her name 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. Yes, sir. It was legal. She filed the paperwork through her lawyer's office. You didn't approve it. Jared rubbed his temple. I didn't even know about it. Sam hesitated again. She left a note, by the way. In the master bedroom. Jared rose instantly and walked into their bedroom. The note was folded neatly on his pillow, written in her clean, sharp handwriting. Jared, you weren't there when I needed you. Not for the pain. Not for the fear. Not when I bled. Not when I broke. I begged for you with my silence. I waited until the waiting felt like dying. You were a ghost when I needed a man. Don't come looking for us. Amelia. His knees gave out, and he sat on the edge of the bed, holding the note like it was burning him. All the money, all the power, all the perfectly manicured deals and meetings and global expansions. None of it could buy back what he'd lost. And for the first time in years, Jared Montgomery had no idea what to do next. The private investigator arrived the next morning, punctual and expressionless. His name was Marcus Hale, a former intelligence officer with sharp eyes and a voice like gravel. Jared met him in the library, an impressive room built for aesthetics, not books. He poured 2 glasses of scotch but only drank his own. Marcus declined with a nod. She's erased her trail well, Marcus said, laying out a thin folder on the mahogany table. Left the hospital under a fake name. Had her people disable CCTV, mask transport logs. No digital trail, no calls, no cards. If you weren't her husband, I'd think this was witness protection. Jared leaned forward. So you found nothing? I didn't say that. Marcus flipped the folder open. Inside, a grainy photo of a sleek black SUV, parked beside a private airstrip. Next to it, Amelia, face mostly obscured by a wide-brimmed hat, holding a small bundle in her arms. She flew out the night after delivery. Private jet. Charter company based out of Maine. Destination wasn't filed under her name, but I traced the tail number. Jared's heart beat faster. Where? An estate in Vermont. Remote. High security perimeter. Cameras. Thermal sensors. Guard rotation. Whoever's protecting her knows how to lock things down. Jared absorbed the words in silence. She's alive. She's safe. That's what matters, Marcus added. It's not enough, Jared said. I need to talk to her. Face to face. Marcus gave him a look. With all due respect, Mr. Montgomery, she doesn't want to be found. I don't care. You should, Marcus said flatly. Women don't disappear with a newborn unless they're protecting themselves. She's not just angry, she's hurt. If you show up uninvited, she might disappear again. Somewhere even I won't be able to find her. Jared stood restless. Then how do I fix this? How do I even begin? Marcus shrugged. That's not my line of work. But if you're asking me as a man, he looked Jared dead in the eye. Stop chasing her like a problem to solve. Start becoming the man she needed back in that hospital. The words hit deeper than expected. Jared didn't sleep that night. He walked the nursery again, stared at the crib, opened old photos, ones where Amelia was smiling, glowing, full of life. It felt like he was watching someone else's past. He opened a notebook and began to write, not to plan or strategize, but to speak. Raw and unfiltered. Not as Jared Montgomery, the billionaire. Just as Jared, the man who failed. It had been 3 days since Jared last spoke to Marcus. 3 days since he'd received the photos of Amelia, shielded by distance and her silence. 3 days of no appetite, no sleep, and a mind that couldn't sit still for more than 10 minutes. He had written 5 letters so far. None sent. He read each one back and tore them up. They all sounded like apologies drafted by a man still hiding behind excuses. He wasn't ready. But someone else needed to answer for their part in this. The mansion in the Hamptons looked different now. Colder. Smaller somehow. The same grand entryway, the same portraits, the same pristine decor, but the warmth had been stripped out of it, like something sacred had died there. Catherine Montgomery was in the drawing room, sipping her favorite Chardonnay and reading the Wall Street Journal like she hadn't detonated a bomb beneath her own family. She looked up when he entered but didn't rise. "If you're here to shout, I'd appreciate a warning. I just had the carpet steamed." Jared didn't answer. He walked slowly into the room, then shut the French doors behind him with a quiet finality. "You didn't just keep food from her," he said, his voice low and steady. "You kept me from her." Catherine set her glass down, unbothered. "You gave me the responsibility. I fulfilled it in the way I saw fit. In the way that made you feel superior." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You're being dramatic." She was alone, bleeding, terrified. She needed comfort. She needed family. And all she got was silence. "She's not family," Catherine snapped. "She's a phase. A soft one. You used to be sharper before her." Jared laughed bitterly. "No, I was numb before her. She was the one thing in this life that made me feel something real. And you hated her for it." Catherine rose from her seat slowly, her tone chilling. "She changed you, Jared. You've become vulnerable. You cancel meetings to have dinner. You smile when your phone rings. That's not strength, it's weakness dressed up as love. That weakness is the only reason I'm not gone yet," he said. "It's the only thing that made this cold, vicious world bearable." He stepped forward, closer than he'd ever stood when confronting her. "You lied to me. You used my trust as a weapon. And you broke something I may never get back." Catherine's lips curled slightly. "If she were worthy of you, she would have fought harder." "No," Jared said, fire in his voice. "She fought in silence. She fought in tears. She fought every second she laid in that hospital bed, while I trusted you. That's my shame to carry." He reached into his coat pocket and tossed a single envelope onto the table. "What's this?" she asked, eyeing it. "Power of attorney. Your access to my accounts is revoked. Your driver's under new employment. Your condo in the city is no longer under my name." Her face hardened. "You're cutting me off? I'm choosing the woman who never gave up on me over the one who never believed in me." There was a silence so sharp it nearly hummed in the air. Catherine's voice dropped to a whisper. "You'll regret this. I already regret trusting you." And with that he left, his footsteps firm, unyielding, and without pause. He didn't look back. The penthouse was quiet, save for the gentle hum of the air conditioning and the rhythmic scratch of a pen against paper. Jared sat at the kitchen island. No laptop, no phone, no distractions. Just a thick leather-bound notebook, nearly half filled with his messy, emotionally wrung-out handwriting. He had started the letters on a whim. One night, unable to sleep, he'd opened a drawer, found an old pen, and written the words he couldn't say out loud. "Amelia, I failed you." He hadn't planned to write another. But the next night, the page called to him again. Then the night after that. And before he knew it, he was writing daily, sometimes more than once. Mornings, nights, random moments when he'd catch himself staring out the window and suddenly be drowning in memory. He wrote about the nursery, how he had imagined their baby laughing in it, how he had stood in the middle of that room for over an hour just last week, unsure if it was a place of hope or punishment. He wrote about the nurse at the hospital, how her words had been brutal but honest. He wrote about Catherine, about the confrontation, the cutoff, and the hollow victory it brought. He didn't write excuses. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just spoke. To her. from the version of himself that was too blind to show up, and the one that now couldn't sleep without seeing her face in the shadows. One night, after hours of pacing, he finally placed one of the letters, the one he couldn't bear to rip up, in an envelope. He called Marcus. "Deliver it," he said. Marcus was silent for a beat. "You sure? She can burn it if she wants. But I have to try." Jared watched as Marcus took the letter and walked away with it. A piece of him floating out of reach. Days passed. No word. No sign. But Jared didn't stop writing. He turned the spare bedroom into a small office, lined the walls with photos of her, of them. He read parenting books. Attended anonymous grief and fatherhood support groups under a fake name. He started a maternal wellness foundation in Amelia's name, quietly funding postpartum programs for under-resourced hospitals. His empire ran without him, largely on autopilot. Shareholders complained. Board members whispered. He didn't care. He was rebuilding the man he should have been. And then, just when the routine of grief had dulled into a kind of ritual, the doorbell rang. Jared opened it to find a single envelope lying on the ground. No note. No sender. Inside was a photo. Amelia, standing in front of a white farmhouse, her face turned slightly toward the sun. In her arms a baby, his baby. A tiny hand reaching up to tug at her necklace. Jared held the photo in trembling fingers, like it might vanish if he blinked too hard. He read nothing in her eyes. Not anger. Not joy. Just peace. But it was more than he deserved. And then, 3 days later, as he sat by the window writing another letter, his phone buzzed with a new message. A number with no name. "We're ready to talk." Jared sat in his car for 10 full minutes before he could convince his hands to unlock the door. The gravel driveway crackled beneath his shoes as he stepped out. Vermont's late afternoon sun was soft, golden, casting long shadows across the quiet landscape. The air smelled of pine and wildflowers. Far off, birds called lazily from the trees, indifferent to the storm brewing in his chest. The farmhouse stood ahead, white timeless, with ivy climbing its sides like nature itself had been asked to protect what was inside. He could see a porch swing swaying gently in the breeze. And for a brief, surreal second, he wondered if he'd dreamed this whole thing. Then the front door creaked open. Amelia stepped out. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her hair was tied loosely at the nape of her neck, and her linen dress fluttered lightly in the breeze. In her arms, a baby, wrapped in soft blue and white, sleeping soundly against her chest. Jared didn't move. He didn't rush her. He didn't speak. He just stood there, waiting for whatever she was ready to give. Amelia studied him with unreadable eyes. He looked different now, slimmer, quieter. Worn, but not in a broken way. More like someone who had finally stopped running. "I got your letters," she said softly. He nodded. "I read them all," she added. "Even the one you scratched out in the margins." "I meant every word," Jared replied, his voice low. There was a long silence. Then, gently, she stepped down from the porch and walked toward him. She didn't offer the baby. She didn't touch him. But she stood just close enough for him to see the soft rise and fall of their son's chest. His son. "He has your nose," she said, not smiling, not crying, just stating a truth that made his throat ache. Jared's eyes burned. "I've missed everything." "You missed the beginning," she corrected. "Not everything." She looked down at the child, then back up at him. Her voice, when it came next, was steady, firm. "I don't need promises, Jared. I don't want flowers or declarations or some grand gesture. I want truth, presence, and patience. I have nothing left but those," he said. Another silence. This one softer. She nodded. "Then let's talk." And just like that, she turned and walked back toward the porch. After a hesitant beat, Jared followed. Up the steps, through the open door, and into a home that felt, for the first time in what felt like forever, like a beginning rather than an end. Not a reunion. A restart. Because some love stories don't circle back to where they began. Some find a new place to begin again.